Are we ready? Okay, this chapter's up here. This chapter's about biodiversity. Biodiversity is the abundance of living things on the planet. And living things on the planet are grouped accordingly. I hope you remember all the different kingdoms and domains.
Did King Philip come over for spaghetti?
Yeah, that's the classification levels. So the domains are archaea. Listen. Up here, please. Archaea, bacteria, and all the different kingdoms of eukarya, which are protists, fungi, plants, and animals. Scientists have done their best to figure out how many different species there are on our planet. So far, we've identified about 2 million. Where the scientists know about the structure, it's written, they're named, but we've named about 2 million different species. But we estimate that there might be up to 10, 20, 30 million species out there. Most of them so far not discovered. Most of the undiscovered species will be microbes and things like that that are hard to find and hard to see. Yeah.
What are they called?
Protists, fungi, plant, and animals are all kingdoms from the domain eukarya. You ever heard of eukaryotes? There's a lot of living things out there. But what we found is that recently, the amount of living things on the planet has started to decline.
Oh, fun.
It's going down at a rate that's very, very quick, very, very fast compared to the normal rate at which organisms go extinct. So we're worried about that.
Hey,
And the reason why is it helps to have a high biodiversity. Erica, you okay?
yeah, I was just saying the giant panda is no longer an endangered species.
Oh, nice.
Wait, what is it?
That's true.
I mean, what is no longer in
The giant panda, she said, is not
Oh.
I did not know.
Are rhinos still like endangered?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
That's so sad.
Let's talk about what's important about biodiversity. Why do you want a high biodiversity? Well, one, it's important to have variation. You need a large pool of genetic variation in order to have thriving populations. Darwin's finches had beaks of all different sizes and shapes. Short beaks, long beaks, thin beaks, fat beaks. And because there are so many different types of variations, the species could survive extinction pretty easily. If the food that was around was small and needed the short beak to eat, well, there were short beak varieties. If the food was real tough, like nuts that are hard to crack, well, we had the thick beak species. If the food was deep in holes in trees, we had the long beak species, and so forth. You need to have a wide diversity to have a healthy, thriving population that can survive for a long period of time. So you want to have a large pool of genetic variation for survival of the species. You don't want to just have one kind of giraffe. You want to have a bunch of different types that can blend into different locations and so forth. One thing that's good for humans about biodiversity is that we get most of our products from nature. Most of the stuff that we have comes from nature. Wood, that's from trees. And so is cotton. Cotton is from living things. Fibers made by cotton plants. Glues. Most of our chemicals come from living things. We got the plant in Brunswick. It used to be called Hercules. What's it called now?
I knew it was
Anyone
called
know?
Hercules.
It used to be called Hercules.
Still called Hercules, I believe.
Is it?
No, it's like
They take big stumps and extract all these chemicals from them. There's all sorts of chemicals in those stumps. And they make them into products and sell them. Some of the stuff, like when you chew gum, The stuff that makes it chewy is from trees. And the stuff that makes glue sticky is from trees. And so there's lots of products that we can get. This is a person getting rubber from a tree. Rubber comes from trees.
Really?
Rope. And all the dyes that we have are all chemicals that are found in nature. So we need to maintain our biodiversity so we can have all those products. One thing that biodiversity does for humans is it warns us of potential poisons in the environment. I don't know if you ever heard of a substance called DDT. You ever heard of that? DDT? DDT was the best pesticide ever invented. It was for killing insects. If you wanted to get rid of gnats or roaches or whatever, you could spray DDT. And it worked great. There's not a product now that works as good as DDT worked. And so it got real popular. People sprayed it everywhere. It helped the farmers. You could kill all the insects that were eating the crops. The problem that we didn't realize is DDT is a substance that will get in the food chain. And it'll get into the water, and it's absorbed by the little plankton at the bottom of the food chain. And then as organisms eat those plankton, the zooplankton eat the phytoplankton, all the DDT gets into their bodies. And then the shrimp eat the zooplankton, and the DDT is in their bodies. And it just runs up through the fish and through the food chain, and it ends up in the birds at the top of the food chain. And DDT, when it's in high concentrations, it doesn't kill the bird directly, but it causes the bird's eggs to be too thin. And the mother breaks the eggs when she sits on them. Yes. Yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
I don't know why it's over here.
The table. Appreciate
Or
it.
how it ended up here. There you go. Maybe Joseph. Who's in the green group?
Lauren.
Yarn?
Yeah, but not really.
Green paper.
I'm okay.
Yeah, but not really.
So the birds sit on the eggs. They break the eggs because of the DDT. And we almost drove a lot of the large birds at the top of the food chain to extinction.
Wow.
The bald eagle almost went extinct. The peregrine falcon almost went extinct. There were, we almost killed off the symbol of our country from this poison that was in the environment.
What's the symbol?
The bald eagle.
Come on. That's shameful.
So,
Okay, Lachlan.
living things, biodiversity can actually warn us of toxins that are in the environment, like these animals warned us that DDT is toxic. If the birds are eating the fish and it's damaging the birds, people eat the fish too. And it's potentially damaging to people. So it's good that we saw that in time, and now we've made it DDT illegal. Nobody uses it anymore. And we've avoided a potential threat to ourselves. Have you ever heard the term canary in the coal mine?
Of course.
People who are coal miners, when they go underground into these caves to dig up coal, they would carry a canary with them in a cage. Because sometimes they'd be digging, and if you dug into the side of the cave and some poisonous gases came out that you couldn't smell or detect, it would usually kill the canary before it would kill the coal miners. And so while they're down there, they keep an eye on this bird. And if they looked up and the bird was dead, they'd get out of there. This is a real thing. And so there's a common phrase called the canary in the coal mine. The canary is a warning that if something goes bad with that we're in trouble. And that's how living things, a good biodiversity, are like canaries in the coal mine for the people. We can see if something's wrong with them, something's probably bad in the environment. I don't know if you knew this, but more than half of the drugs in the world come from wild species. They're not synthetic. They're from nature. Aspirin comes from the bark of a tree, of a certain kind of tree. This is a flower called the rosy periwinkle, and there are a couple of cancer-treating drugs that come from it. If you've ever heard of penicillin, that came from a fungus. There's all sorts of plants and animals and microorganisms out there in nature that make chemicals to help them survive, and we can use that to help us survive. But we need to have a wide biodiversity to be able to have all those things. We don't need to be driving things to extinction. They could potentially house drugs and chemicals that we can use. I don't know if y'all have seen this. There's a movie. Can somebody check it out? Somebody check out Medicine Man?
I've done that one.
Oh, there it is. This is a really good movie. If you want to check it out, you can watch it for extra credit. It's called Medicine Man. It's got Sean Connery in it. He's a real good actor. And it's about a scientist who goes to the rainforest in search of this chemical that they can make into a medication that'll cure cancer. And it's kind of a race versus time because he's trying to figure out where in the rainforest it comes from. And they're cutting down the rainforest where it is. So he's trying to find it before they cut it down.
Can I rent that?
Yeah, you can check it out. I'll put it back there. So we need to preserve biodiversity for that. And then also, organisms, we can copy nature for our technology. This car right here was patterned after this fish, which is called a yellow box fish. Because fish have to be aerodynamic to get through the water, and fish have to have a lot of room in their bodies to hold all their organs. And so the fish has kind of given us an idea on how we should design things. And we call that bioengineering. And I got a great video on it. So check it out.
We live in a beautiful world surrounded by genius. Shark skin is antimicrobial and reduces drag. Lotus leaf plants have self-cleaning surfaces. Peacock feathers create color without pigment. Gecko foot pads create adhesion without adhesives. I've always been fascinated by the natural world. Number one, I see the inherent beauty, but secondly, on a deeper level, I look and I see possible solution sets to design challenges. I'm Maria O'Farrell, and I'm a biomimicry professional. And what that means is it's my job to go into companies and help them solve design challenges using 3.8 billion years of research and development from the natural world.
My name's Kevin Beck, and I work at Lenovo. Engineering is ultimately all about iteration. You rarely get anything right the first time. You build it, and you test it, and you figure out what's wrong with it, and then you improve it, and you do that again, and again, and again, and again. But nature's been doing that for billions of years. So sometimes it helps to sort of skip ahead in the process and see what solution nature came up with. That's what biomimicry is all about. Taking the best of nature and seeing if we can somehow adapt that to solve a technology problem. So here's a good example of how this works. We've got a thermal and cooling engineer who was faced with a reasonably large challenge of creating a new type of fan to go into a new all-in-one desktop. By necessity, it has to be really, really thin, but also be really, really quiet. So this engineer took his son to the aquarium on a Saturday, and there was a dolphin show. So he's sitting there watching the dolphin show, and he notices that when they come out of the water, they go back into the water. It's a very clean exit, very clean entry, because of the shape of their body.
Dolphins evolve a design strategy so that they can move through the water quickly with the least amount of noise to capture their prey.
He had this kind of aha moment that said, If they're that efficient in water, I wonder if that structure might also work for a fan in air.
Water has 500 times the frictional drag that air does. So if you found something that can do it in water, it stands to reason that you found a pretty good design for the air.
So he goes back and sort of mocks up this design in his CAD program. Didn't work very well at all the first, second, third, fourth, fifth time, but he finally got to something that actually works really, really well. There's a fan blade, and on the ends of the tips of the blades, there's a little structure that looks kind of like a dolphin's body. They're very efficient at moving air, very, very quiet. There are a number of other examples of biomimicry in Lenovo products as well. Stands inspired by the shape of an orchid stem. Fans inspired by the shape of an owl's wing. Cooling vents inspired by the honeycomb structure of a beehive. Each of these designs have all, in some way, been made better by biomimicry.
We are natural beings. We're animals. And I think a lot of the problems that we face are tied indelibly to the fact that we have divorced ourselves from nature. But the good news is, again, as a young species, that we have a lot of mentors and evolutionary elders and a life's operating manual that we can consult. All of the solutions we seek out are right in front of us. We're surrounded by genius.
Cool. You could be a biomimicry engineer. Get designs from nature. Go to Georgia Tech, they probably have a program in that.
Go Georgia.
What else is good about biodiversity? Well, our atmosphere is maintained by plants and algae and cyanobacteria. They take in the carbon dioxide, they release the oxygen. Whenever they take in the air, they purify it a bit too. A lot of the poisons and nastiness that's in the air gets pulled into the plant, trapped in the plant, and kind of fresh air comes out. Nature has kind of a filtering device. It's called photosynthesis. And so if we want clean air, we want as many of the plants and algae and cyanobacteria that we can get. Let me ask you a question. Just guess out loud. What percentage of the air, of the oxygen that's in the air, do you think comes from plants? And what percent comes from algae and cyanobacteria? You think it's more from plants, or you think it's more from algae?
More from algae and cyanobacteria.
Think?
Yeah.
You're positive?
I think it's the other way.
I agree.
There's more water.
You're right, there's more water. Yeah. It's about 70-30. 70% of the oxygen comes from the algae and cyanobacteria. And you look around, you see all these trees, and you think, wow, that's a lot. There's way more in algae and cyanobacteria out there. Kind of interesting to know. Here's another good thing. Are y'all filming the lesson? Can we do that? Here's another good thing about living things having a high biodiversity. They prevent erosion. On a hillside, if you grow plants on it, they'll dig their roots down deep. They'll keep the soil from eroding. If you lose that, the wind and the water can erode away areas and cause a lot of problems. So we want to have as many different types of organisms as we can grow in all types of soils, stabilize things. Here's another thing. Not only do living things clean the air, they clean the water. So as it rains down and water percolates through the soil, a lot of the water will end up in aquifers, and we can pump that up, and guess what? It's all real clean. It's been cleaned by soil microbes and plant roots as the water percolates through, even if it's polluted water, it will be filtered of all its pollutants. So we count on the microbes to do that. These are a couple of scientists working with these microbes. We count on living things to bring nitrogen out of the air through these little nodules into the plants. Plants can utilize nitrogen, but only if it's made into a form that they can use, and that's done by bacteria that are in these little root nodules. Each nodule contains billions of bacteria that will take nitrogen from the air and make it into ammonia and nitrite and nitrate that the plant can use. So that way you don't have to fertilize your plants as much. These little bacteria are basically making fertilizer for the plant. If we didn't have those things, we'd have to fertilize our plants way more to grow crops. But a lot of the plants that are called legumes have these nodules on their roots. I think we just studied that in the nitrogen cycle. Do y'all remember that? What about pollinators? We need a variety of living things to act as pollinators for our flowering plants that we grow. Birds can be pollinators, bees, you know, bats can pollinate. And we have to have our flowers pollinated if we're going to have fruit. Did anyone here ever eat fruit? That came from a flower that had to be pollinated before the fruit could grow. So I don't know if you knew this, but one of the problems that we have in this country right now are there's not enough bees. Have you heard about this?
Oh yeah, the bees are going extinct.
We're lacking in bees.
I have a beehive.
You have a
I
beehive?
have a beehive.
He has bees to himself.
We're not sure why. They think it might be a fungus or some kind of parasite. But the bees tend to be dying. And one of the problem is because we have used kind of the same type of bee everywhere around the country to help with our pollinating. And what we really need is a whole bunch of different types of pollinators. So if there is a parasite or something that affects one species, we have a whole other bunch of species that can still do the job. You don't want to have all the same species of something. That's when you can run into problems. So it's nice to have a biodiversity, a whole bunch of different organisms that do your pollinating for you. And there's a little video footage on that. You want to see the video footage on that? Maybe we can make this. Video footage about, it's a little cartoon, I think.
Hi, I'm our friend here, Joanna, and I'm here at the fantastic hot house to talk to you about bumblebees. Now you're probably wondering, what do bees and tomatoes have in common? Well, bumblebees actually play a very important role in the production of tomatoes. Here to tell me more is Dr. Purdy, who's been studying bees for over a decade.
Thanks, Joanna. You're right. Bumblebees do have a very special role when it comes to producing tomatoes. Their role is to pollinate the flowers on the tomato plants. See, pollination happens when a brightly colored powder is moved from one part of the flower to another. The pollen is produced in the male part of the flower, which is called the anther, and it's moved to the female part of the flower, which is called the stigma. It takes one tiny grain of pollen to make each seed in the fruit or vegetable. For some plants, like grain and corn, the pollen is carried by the wind. But for many plants, like fruit and vegetables, bumblebees are responsible for the pollination.
That's very interesting. So can you tell me some of the other foods that bumblebees pollinate?
Yes, bumblebees are important for pollination of raspberries, blackberries, blueberries, almonds, watermelon, pumpkins, and many others, just to name a few. And they also help to pollinate other crops like clover when it's grown for seed, or canola grown for cooking oil.
So does that mean without pollination, we'd have trouble growing enough food?
That's right, Joanna. We have grain and corn, but we depend on bumblebees for pollination of many fruits and vegetables. Remember that I said that one tiny grain of pollen is required for each seed in a fruit or vegetable. That means that if a flower doesn't get pollen or doesn't get enough pollen, there'd be less crop to harvest and the fruit would be smaller. We depend on pollination by bumblebees for much of our food supply. Wild plants and the wild animals that feed on them depend on bumblebees for pollination too. The problem is Some bees have been disappearing, and all bees are under stress.
Do we know what's causing this?
Yes, recent research tells us that there are many factors. New bee diseases coming into our area, competition for food and nesting areas, loss and fragmentation of habitat. Pollution, pesticides, and climate change are also thought to be threats.
So, by the sound of it, there are a lot of things that are making it harder for bees to survive, which is why we need to do more research to get to the bottom of this extremely important issue.
That's right, Giovanna. We do need to know a lot more about bumblebees.
This is why it's so important for Earth Rangers to join forces and support research so that we can better protect bumblebees. We're raising money to help scientists study habitat needs, pollination habits, and population sizes of wild bumblebees.
She's a good reporter. 5 points. You can tell me each type of threat that was on the bottom of the screen with a little yellow triangle. 5 points for each type of threat that's threatening bumblebees.
Do you want me to stop filming?
Nope.
Oh.
Won't stop filming.
When it comes to the bees, I know everything.
Okay. Rhea.
Oh, I did so bad.
Rhea. Can I have a pen? No, you don't.
Did you have your notes?
They're all wrong.
Here, can you film me?
That's the only one I know. And the thing is, though,
because I kept sticking it. So I got that.
Green!
no, I don't know.
Green got 2 of them. Anyone else?
Yes.
Yes, 3 for orange.
I didn't get that one.
Yeah, I'd like it.
Yellow.
Yeah.
Got 4. Purple. Purple got 5.
No, go. This funny. Okay, shut up. If you wish I could help you.
What?
Yeah.
Can we watch more about bees?
Hold on.
Grace. I need to do my own job.
Grace, get it back.
Grace.
Grace. I just need to break down one.
Anyone else's?
Yeah.
Okay.
Pink boy.
Okay.
That's Carl Weezer.
Pear.
Give me the pen.
Need.
1 for pink.
No.
Toby, I hope I don't.
No, you dropped it. The purple. The group that you're in. Okay. That's my group, yeah.
Grace, what form did you get?
C.
Here's the answer.
Yeah, I think I had C.
I don't think we all got C.
Check it out. Disease, competition, habitat loss, pollution, pesticides, and climate change. Here's another reason for biodiversity. Predators control insects. We would have a whole bunch of more insects if we didn't have predators that could eat them. And the insects will damage crops, they are pests. We just sprayed some that were by the trash can.
Our planet's diverse, thriving ecosystems may seem like permanent fixtures,
Watch the
but
video,
they're
10
actually
points,
vulnerable
questions
to
on.
collapse. Jungles can become deserts, and reefs can become lifeless rocks, even without cataclysmic events like volcanoes and asteroids. What makes one ecosystem strong and another weak in the face of change? The answer, to a large extent, is biodiversity. Biodiversity is built out of three intertwined features: ecosystem diversity, species diversity, and genetic diversity. The more intertwining there is between these features, the denser and more resilient the weave becomes. Take the Amazon rainforest, one of the most biodiverse regions on Earth due to its complex ecosystems, huge mix of species, and the genetic variety within those species. Here are tangled liana vines, which crawl up from the forest floor to the canopy, intertwining with treetops and growing thick wooded stems that support these towering trees. Helped along by the vines, trees provide the seeds, fruits, and leaves to herbivores such as the tapir and the agouti, which disperse their seeds throughout the forest so they can grow. Leftovers are consumed by the millions of insects that decompose and recycle nutrients to create rich soil. The rainforest is a huge system filled with many smaller systems like this, each packed with interconnected species. Every link provides stability to the next, strengthening biodiversity's weave. That weave is further reinforced by the genetic diversity within individual species, which allows them to cope with changes. Species that lack genetic diversity due to isolation or low population.
How do you explain something?
Read half the chapter.